Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our seventh and last final session of the spirituality workshop. So it's been uh, a tremendous 6-7 weeks, and we've been learning a lot together. And I salute each one of you, youngsters especially, who were committed to joining this session. And I hope you take something really big out of this experience. So before I start the actual discussions, let's have a brief invocation. I want to invite Rupa again. Thank you so much.
Sure, Prasadita. So today we will do the last shlokam from Narayaniam.
Great.
Ajñātvā te mahatvam yadiha nigaditam vishvanāta kshametāha stotram chaitat sahasrottaram Tvatprasadhaya bhuyat dvedha narayaniyam shrutishu cha janusha stutyata varnanena svitam leelavatarai idamiha kurutam ayur arogya saukhyam.
Thank you very much. It's good to have you all back again. I know the attendance is a little bit small tonight, mostly because people are practicing for the Onam celebration. So before you got here, kids, I was talking to Sanjeev uncle, and we were just talking about how pervasive this anti-Hindu propaganda has been in India and around the world a little bit. So I hope what you learn through these sessions will kind of enforce the idea that the actual true Hinduism is a force for good. Absolutely, in every word of it, every sense of the word. So let's begin by reviewing what we did last time. And I have something to say about the subject matter of three gunas and the varnas that we discussed last time. So without further ado, here we go. Let's move on. Okay, I hope everyone can see it. Okay, so summary of last time, we talked about the triguna. Triguna means three gunas. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Sattva represents purity or balance. Rajas is hyperactivity, ambition, and Tamas is lethargy, laziness, and inactivity. Now, we also talked about different combinations thereof, and then how the different four varnas were kind of defined. By the way, Lord Krishna specifically says that in the Bhagavad Gita. This is not intended for discrimination against people. And you don't become a Brahmin just because of birth. You become a Brahmin or Kshatriya or Vaishya or Shudra because of your action and temperament. This is very, very important. A lot of people say, oh, Hinduism is all about caste. Maybe some people misinterpreted the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita and other sacred books to suit their purposes. But this is something that you should definitely tell people anytime you hear people who don't know anything at all about Hinduism criticize Hinduism for the caste system. You should be able to say, well, look, the caste was not originally there. It was a creation of, for the lack of a better word, evil-minded people who wanted to dominate over other fellow human beings, who were not learned. If you actually learn the scriptures properly, you would not go to that level of subjugating other fellow human beings based on caste or varna. That's not what it is meant to be. Yeah, so we talked about the analogy to the three primary colors, the red, blue, and green. And chapter 14 of the Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga Gunas, we chanted a bunch of verses from that. And we also talked about chapter 18, how chapter 18 describes different kinds of, in other words, the three, the sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic nature of many different things, happiness, work, and worker, and all that stuff. Okay, this is what we did. So any questions from last time or any other previous time, or anything that we haven't done, or anything that you've been thinking about? Any questions before we proceed? Please participate. Do not be shy. Ask anything. I mean, if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you that I don't know the answer. Okay? There is no such thing as a stupid question or stupid comment. Any questions or comments? Okay. This again is the first slide that we created together. We define what spirituality is. It's a practical tool in our arsenal that we can use to improve our lives, improve the quality of our lives. Okay, there's nothing mystical about it. If you want to associate some divinity, that's fine, but it's not mystical. It's not a secret code or anything. It should be taught, as Swami Vivekananda said, it should be taught in broad daylight to every section of the population. Spirituality. Every human being by nature is spiritual, in a way, in different ways though. I mean, my spirituality may not be exactly the same as Rupa aunties or Sanjay uncles, Sanjeev uncles. So it's a way you connect with others or yourself or the higher self. Okay. Anyway, so what have we learned thus far? I just, before I show that slide, I want to take some thoughts from you. This is our last session. I want to get some thoughts from you. What have we learned so far? Just give me some random thoughts. It doesn't have to be in order or anything. I'm waiting. Come on, kids.
One thing is, I think that there's a lot more to like Hindu spirituality than we could ever seem to cover, especially when it comes to things like that are heavily marketed, like yoga and karma.
Absolutely.
There's a lot more to it than what it looks like.
That's absolutely right. I mean, we can't even scratch the surface of this vast field that we call spirituality. That's absolutely right. Any other thoughts? Let me ask you, what have you learned in the last 6 weeks?
Well, I learned that spirituality helps with like the peace of mind and being more calm and understanding. Like one way of this is like meditating. Like after like 10 or 15 minutes of meditating, you'll feel more calmer and you feel like you're ready to like see what the day has in store for you, like that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay. So as you guys were saying, spirituality, we saw spirituality as a practical means to success in everyday life. We talked about spirituality and science. A lot of these teachings are they have some scientific truth about them. And in this day and age, people don't believe in something just because some book said it. And the beauty of Hinduism is that it's not faith-based, it's experiential religion. In other words, what your experience matters way more than what somebody said. Okay, so in that sense, it's very similar to the scientific approach to life. We covered philosophies of Vedic traditions. There are 6 of them. We talked about them. We talked about yoga and meditation. And then we looked at some testimonials of individuals, especially these 2 women, one a really young woman and the other one a doctor from Canada. There are so many on YouTube, but we don't have the time to play all of them. And then we said the most practical approach to life is karma yoga. Karma yoga is also called the Krishna creed. Lord Krishna doesn't advocate renunciation and going to forest and giving up everything. He says, enjoy life, be here and now, and then be engaged in all real life activities. Do your work sincerely without clinging to personal gains or rewards. That's important. A lot of people translate these Sanskrit words into desire. I don't like that. I prefer to use personal gains or rewards. It's almost like playing baseball, always looking at the scoreboard. You're not going to do well. Okay, so this is essentially what we did, and we looked into so many details, but I was trying to summarize everything in a nutshell. Now, today's topics are very, very important. One of them is neuroplasticity, and the other one is emotional intelligence. When I say neuroplasticity, what comes to your mind? What do you think it means? Neuro means what? Plasticity means what?
Neuro probably means like your neurons, your brains, like how your brain like takes in like information and how it like acts upon it.
Okay, what is plasticity? What is plastic? What do plastics do?
Harm the environment.
Okay, yeah.
So probably like
yeah. Okay, but plastic, the property of plastic. No, actually, yeah, I cannot argue with that. But originally, though, plastics were invented for what? What was the purpose of it? The function of it? Plasticity means flexibility, changeability. So neuroplasticity means the brain can be changed, molded. A lot of people think once you hit 20 or 21, your brain stops growing. You cannot learn anything new. That's utterly false. That's scientifically proven to be wrong. If you look up the word neuroplasticity, you'll get tons of hits in Google. Please do so. The other thing that I want to say is do not rely only on what I tell you. You have to do your own research as well. Okay. Now, emotional intelligence, another extremely important topic. A lot of people, a lot of psychologists and scientists have paid attention to that aspect of our life, emotional intelligence. What do you think emotional intelligence means? As opposed to IQ? Yeah.
Probably like how you deal with certain circumstances and like how your emotions probably affect how you react to the circumstance.
Wow, that's right on the money. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So there's even a book called Emotional Intelligence, or EQ. Why is it more important than IQ? The reason is, if you don't know how to handle your own emotions, if you don't understand other people's emotions, you're not likely to succeed in life. Just because you're a smart guy or smart woman, it doesn't guarantee you success. That's the message, okay? That's actually the truth. So let's get to neuroplasticity first. So if you want a little formal definition or a description, this is how it is done. Neuroplasticity means the brain's lifelong capacity to change and rewire itself in response to the stimulation of learning and experience. When you learn something new, your brain changes permanently. Why? Because new neurons are generated, new neural networks are created. And because of this process, your brain completely changes. Because your brain changes, the way you think, you act will also be different. It can also be caused by experience that you have with other people or circumstances, external stimuli, okay? Now, studies have demonstrated that reorganization of the brain activity pattern in response to intense training of motor and cognitive tasks and imagination of movements. In other words, when you train hard, when you work hard on a cognitive task, it can actually help build a stronger brain or a more powerful it can create new intelligence, is what I'm trying to say. There are lots of exercises like imagination of movements and things like that. Again, you should look this up. And a lot of this neuroplasticity is latent. Latent means hidden. It was hidden up until recently, until advanced technology showed beyond the shadow of a doubt that neuroplasticity is a real thing. So as I said before, neuroplasticity involves creation of new neurons. Also, the size of neurons too, that can change. And then neuron connectivity. How do we think? When we think, there's a transmission, signal transmission from neuron to neuron. Okay, that's how we think. So when we do different tasks, even physical tasks, your brain is actually involved. One of the ways in which you can avoid Alzheimer's disease, for example, is to engage in a lot of physical activity. It's kind of counterintuitive, but this is actually proven to be right. You can check out Khan Academy's video here. I'm not going to play this for you right now, but it tells you what neuroplasticity means at the cellular level. If you're interested, if you're into the physiology of neuroplasticity, there are two kinds of neuroplasticity. One is structural and then neural plasticity. It's pretty interesting, actually. And then again, I'm hoping, I trust that you will go back and look at this presentation. I have included another, let me actually go into the presentation mode. Okay, there you go. Okay, so if you look at this video, this young woman tells you a bunch of activities. It's actually fun to increase your brain activity or to develop new neurons. It's a really good exercise. Actually, there are 6 of them or something like that. Okay, please check them out. Maybe I'll play a little bit of that. Let's see how it goes. Now,
waiters always look at me and think that I'm going to have a little.
Okay, hold on a second. Can you hear this? Okay.
Salad, maybe a soup, and that'll be the whole meal. And when I do my.
Well, we can hear it, but we can't see the video.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me see. How about now?
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, you got the idea, right? So there are a bunch of exercises. Please check them out, okay? After I post this video, you should look at that website and then do them. They're really good for developing your neural connectivity because these are things that you don't normally do. Another thing you can try is, let's say your predominant or your dominant hand is your right hand. Try writing with your left hand. So anytime you learn something new, your neural network changes, okay? And you create new neurons and you solidify your neural connectivity. That's the message. So let me just go back to the presentation. Okay, all right. Now, so why are we talking about neuroplasticity and spirituality? Because there's a big connection between neuroplasticity and spirituality. Now, I'm going to play for you two videos. The first one is by Kurt Thompson, and the other one is Tracy Thompson. They're not related. I don't know, for some reason they have the same last name. In fact, Kurt Thompson is a Christian. I show this to kind of make a point. It doesn't really matter what tradition you follow. In all spiritual traditions, there is this emphasis on spirituality, and spirituality, they didn't know the word neuroplasticity back then, but obviously there was something good that came out of spiritual exercises. Okay, that's the point. So let me just go back to that thing. Here we go. There we go.
The term neuroplasticity really refers to the capacity of neurons to flexibly change. By that, we mean the following. 25 to 30 years ago, which is not really that long, it was believed that, for the most part, if there was any damage to the brain, number one, the brain would have a great deal of difficulty recovering from that damage. The second thing was that it was generally considered that once a person reaches the age somewhere between about 12 and 16, that the brain was, for the most part, done forming, and there really wasn't any more space for growth or change whatsoever. But advancements in some of our technology gives us the capacity for now measuring what those neurons are able to do. And as it turns out, neurons are far more flexible than we ever thought they were. And by flexibility, by neuroplasticity, or the neuron's capacity to be flexible, plastic or malleable, we mean the following. First of all, that neurons are able of regeneration. So the brain has the capacity for, one, growing new neurons. The second part of neuroplasticity is that the brain has the capacity for neurons to grow in size and length, in diameter and in length. And the third thing is that neurons are able to increase their degree of connectivity with other neurons. All three of these things, regeneration, growth in length and diameter, and growth in density of connection, means that our mind has the capacity for doing things even after damage that we didn't think it could do before. What does that have to do with spiritual transformation? We like to say that in the brain, nothing changes without neurons changing. If I learn a new thing, if I put a new practice into a disciplined place, all of those things require the redirection of neurons to do things that they weren't doing before. Neuroplasticity is something that we want to enhance in order to make that flexibility more accessible. Things like spiritual disciplines, fasting, confession, prayer, solitude, and so forth, do a couple of things. One, They open our awareness to things that our mind is sensing, feeling, evoking, that we typically are not paying attention to. If I am now paying attention to these new things, I'm asking my brain's neurons to do things they weren't doing before. And as such, I open up windows into connecting functions of my mind, experiences of my mind that were not being connected before. And so the flexibility of neuroplasticity is, in some respects, almost interchangeable with spiritual formation. You can't really talk about spiritual formation without invoking the activity of neuroplasticity.
Okay, so I'm going to play another video. Again, in the interest of time, I'm not playing the whole thing, but so let's listen to this woman.
I think anything
for
that we
hours.
do,
I mean, who wouldn't want to do
which-
that?
Okay.
So, and it doesn't matter where you look, because you could look in the Indian Vedic texts, or the Yoga Sutras, or the Taoist alchemists, or the Chinese meridians, or this is more in the biblical meditation, and the Kabbalah, and the Tree of Life, and the spheres. Every religion has a pathway, and it's not necessarily religion, but let's just say spiritual path that gives us to those higher centers. So it's time for us to wake up and activate these higher centers and power up our brains. So let's look at the science. So just as Newton and Einstein studied invisible phenomena that could not be seen with the naked eye, they were able to measure the effects. And with the advances in neuroimaging today, with functional MRIs that measure blood flow, and quantitative EEGs that measure brain flow, SPECT scans, and other computerized programs, we can measure the effects of activating these centers. So I began to map the brains of great meditators. And in fact, there's a whole new field of science called neurotheology that's used to categorize these extraordinary findings. This is one of my subjects, Dr. Carlos de Leon. He spends his life trying to save the sacred oral traditions that are being lost on our planet every day as great masters pass on. And he had one of the most beautiful brains I've ever examined. So I'm going to show you a picture of us, most of us. These are beta waves. Can you kind of see that they're all like choppy and saw-like? This is us when we're paying attention, when we're focused, but it's also that crazy, busy brain that drives us nuts of what am I going to get for groceries? I'm trying to go to sleep. I can't think that. How am I going to do tomorrow? Blah, 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 blah. All this noise and chaos. And often, a lot of us, especially with all the technology and all the noise out there, and I love the previous talks about getting into nature because this is the best way to lose that. And when we have this noise, we have a sense of unease. And what I've found in my practice is if we live with that unease long enough, it becomes dis-ease. So I want you to contrast, remember this, and look at Carlos's waves. See this beautiful undulating flow? Those are alpha waves. That's the still point in the brain. Now, we can achieve that when we're in meditation or a quiet state. He's awake and he's not meditating. In other words, he's mastered the meditation in the waking state. His brain is always like that. And the beautiful part about that is not only is he calm, but he's not affected by his external environment. Nobody has the power to ruin his day because he's connected and he's happy. There were a lot of findings on Carlos's brain that I couldn't understand. So I sent the data down to the States. And a couple weeks later, I called these guys and I said, what do you think? And they said, we have never seen anything like this. This brain is not human. And I said, I can assure you it's human. But what they were referring to is that Carlos was vibrating at a frequency of 59 hertz. He had gamma waves between 53 and 59. Most of us are over here, 8 to 12. So you think, what's the big deal? He's vibrating higher. The thing is, over here, I have increased mental acuity. I get to see the whole picture. I get to make great decisions from this place. And all of my synaptic connections are working in my brain. Other people are doing this research. Eileen Lueders at the UCLA Lab of Neuroimaging has done some fascinating work looking at the gyri of the brain and found that in 8 weeks of meditation, we actually increase our external cortical structures. And at Harvard, they looked at the Hospital of Massachusetts, where they've done meditation, and they've actually so increases in gray matter, decreases in that amygdala, that's that fear and anxiety center, increases in the parts of the brain that hold that beautiful empathy. There's also Richard Davidson's work at the University of Wisconsin, and he's been working with Tibetan monks for some time now. And he's been able to demonstrate that these monks, they're very happy because they light up this beautiful part in the left prefrontal cortex that's associated with the positive emotions. And in fact, they've shown that the levels of dopamine and endorphins and serotonin are raised. All of us want that high. And I see in my practice so many times people get hooked into the path of addiction, whether it's food or alcohol or drugs, because they're trying to self-medicate their brain with this dopamine high, and they don't realize that our bodies are pharmacological warehouses, and that if we know how to do it, we can access it and have this high, all on our own. So this brings me to another brain that I studied. His name was Bill. He was a retired 80-year-old professor. Halfway through the test, that's Barbara on the left. Halfway through the test, I had to stop it because I said, your brain has not aged. You have the brain of a 20-year-old. Because you see, at 320 milliseconds, we're 20. At 400 milliseconds, we're demented. We only have 100 milliseconds in brain speed to lose in our lifetime. And if we don't do anything about it, every decade of life, we get a little slower. But in fact, memory is not part of the normal aging process. And so I asked him, you have the secret. No one's going to be changing your diapers. Your physical body is going to wear out way before your brain. What have you done? And I was surprised. And he said, I've always had love in my life. And my father taught me to let stress roll off my back like water off a duck's back. And you may think, well, that's not my life. You know, he must have lived a blessed life, because I've gone through a lot of stuff. But guess what?
Okay, I'm going to stop it for a second. So I hope you got the point. The last point that she made about this old person having the brain of a 20-year-old, and the secret, according to him, was that he had a lot of love in his heart. What is that in the Hindu parlance or the yoga parlance? What kind of yoga is that? It's called Bhakti Yoga, right? I mean, imagine all this kind of wisdom is stored in the scriptures, and these were written down. These things were written down 5,000 years ago. People didn't know anything about neuroplasticity or anything like that. I think we have every right to be proud of our religion. When I say religion, I actually mean the spiritual traditions. Religion and spirituality are different. Religion focuses, unfortunately, on rituals a little too disproportionately, I would say. Rituals are important, but I think the spiritual component is, in my opinion, more important because that's what actually helps people. Anyway, because the reason I'm saying that is when you rely too much on observances and rituals, people fight over them, and then the ego gets in the way, and then the tranquility gets lost. Anyway, so let's go back to our slide. All right. There's another video that I may not show you this. It's by Sarah Lazar. she was a runner and she injured herself. And then she kind of happened upon a yoga studio because she wasn't able to run. So she said, well, I might as well stretch a little bit. And a long story short, she started feeling really good about herself. Her stress began to wane, and she was, being a scientist, she wanted to find out why. She did a lot of brain studies, including the one that is often mentioned in all these talks, Professor Richard Davidson at University of Wisconsin, which we mentioned, I don't know if you remember it, on our first day when we discussed the happiest man in the world. So you can check this out yourself. Okay, now I'm ready to talk about emotional intelligence. So already we heard from Ish, right? Is that how, what do you go by, Ish?
Yeah.
Okay, you already said what emotional intelligence is, right? Anybody else want to say something else to add to what Ish was saying already? Emotional intelligence, what does that mean? What do you think it means? Okay, so one word before I get into emotional intelligence. Do you see anything that we have talked about in the Gita or anything about spirituality that connects with neuroplasticity? Anything at all?
Please interact, please.
Anything at all? So who is there? Adira, you want to give it a shot? Are you there or?
Yeah.
Okay. So you learned, we learned a lot, right? The last 6 weeks or so. Anything that we talked about, what resonated with you when we talked about neuroplasticity? Like, in other words, our ability to change, our brain's ability to change. Anything at all? So simply just relaxing your mind, right? Just relaxing your mind immediately takes away the pressures. Or remember the stuff that we talked about, amygdala hijack, the emotion center. A lot of our actions are based on our fears, right, and anxieties, and amygdala makes mistakes, right? So we may not make the right decisions. A lot of times we are not able to perform at the level at which we are capable of performing because we are kind of, I don't know, slave to our emotions. So the whole idea about yoga and meditation and mindfulness is about having your parasympathetic nervous system, remember what we said, take over and then kind of minimize the effect of the amygdala hijack. In other words, think before you do something. Don't act based only upon your emotions. Okay, that's what the whole yoga is about. Bring about mental tranquility, peace, reduce anxiety. When you're anxious, when you're worried, you will not make the right decisions, or you'll do something that you will regret later. Okay, so it's all about making your prefrontal cortex, in other words, your rational mind, take over your emotional mind. And this is exactly what Lord Krishna advises Arjuna to do. That's exactly what happened in the Battle of Kurukshetra. He was debilitated by his own emotional burden, right? And then he wasn't able to do the task that he was trained to do. So Sri Krishna came and then he advised him, look, separate your emotions from your true self. You are not your emotions. Watch your emotions dispassionately, objectively, and use your rational mind to do what is needed. Okay. All right. Okay. Emotional intelligence. So as Ish was saying, it's about knowing yourself, self-awareness. The whole yoga and meditation is all about that, right? Self-management. We talked about Ashtanga yoga. There are certain things you don't do. There are certain things you must do. It's all about self-management. And then social awareness is about empathy. We talked about this, like the eternal spirit, that is the essence of you and me and everybody else. So once you realize that, that's the best way to, make empathy a reality. Once you realize that, you will be empathetic toward other people, fellow human beings, and other living beings. And relationship management. Once you can manage yourself, you will be able to handle other people. You need to be able to handle yourself first. You need to understand yourself first. Then you can relate to other people. Okay, so this is exactly what relationship, emotional intelligence means. And Ish was absolutely right about that. And again, if you're a reader, if you want to know further, I would highly, highly recommend this gentleman's work, pioneering and continuing work, Daniel Goleman. He wrote several excellent, excellent books. Let me show you a couple of titles. Okay, so let's see. Here we go. Let's see. Okay, here's one. Do you see it or no?
No.
Oh, why
You
is
should
that?
share your screen probably.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, got it. Okay, here we go. So Daniel Goleman, Focus. See, best-selling author of Emotional Intelligence, the hidden driver of excellence. Okay, that's a great book. Another one is, can you see this one?
I see it.
Do you see it? An
Yeah.
extraordinary collaboration between Buddhist scholars and Western psychologists, neuroscientists, and philosophers. Destructive emotions. How can we overcome them? And I think he is a big admirer of the Dalai Lama. A lot of these ideas, by the way, Buddhist ideas, are actually Hindu ideas as well, because Buddha was a Hindu. Don't forget that. Anyway, so let me go back to the presentation. Okay. And he has written so many articles in the Harvard Business Review. I mean, you should check them out. One of the things that I want to say right now is, you might think neurons are only in the brain. That's not true. Your gut also has a lot of neurons, and the primitive part of your brain is intimately connected to your gut. So the expression gut feeling actually makes sense scientifically. What does that mean? It means when you are trying to make a decision, or let's say you have this funny feeling about some person, that's gut feeling. So don't do anything if you don't feel something, if you feel something is not right. You don't do anything abruptly without thinking rationally, right? So this is the main lesson here. Gut feeling, yes, you need to trust your gut feeling. Gut feeling is sort of like a brake of a car. It's like an alarm system. That gut feeling is important. So because you then you then have to be careful. A lot of successful business people have said this. It's not the knowledge or the expertise of the subject matter that helped me, but it's the gut feeling. If I don't do anything that doesn't feel right, very important, an essential part of emotional intelligence. Now, the popular term is EQ. That's what Daniel Goleman likes. Some people call it EI, emotional intelligence. Oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Daniel Goleman likes EI, emotional intelligence, as opposed to EQ. You know, EQ sounds like IQ, emotional quotient, but you know, he actually prefers EI, emotional intelligence. So it's all about boosting your creativity, your brain's creative power. What are some of the steps involved? First, state and define the problem. In other words, be focused. We chanted so many Bhagavad Gita verses. They all talk about being single-minded, right? Be focused on the task at hand. So that's definitely a spiritual component there. State and define the problem. In other words, what do I really want to do? Be clear, resoluteness. That's one of the words that the Bhagavad Gita uses, resoluteness. Immerse yourself, gather information, don't be lazy, work hard, gather as much information as possible, and then think about it, work on it, without attaching yourself to the results. That's important, okay? If you do that, then you cannot be very creative. And then step number 3, let go and relax. At some point, you have to say, hey, I can't do this anymore. In fact, a lot of these steps are intuitive. You guys are already doing this. Let's say you're studying for the exam or something, or your physics exam, or your history test. You work and work and work. You gather all the information or what is covered, what units, and all that stuff. And then you study and study, and then finally, you're just tired. You cannot think anymore. That's a good sign, the signal that the brain tells you it's time to stop. A lot of times what happens is when you stop, you take a shower or go for a long walk, or maybe you take your dog out for a walk, suddenly some idea clicks. Why? Because the brain doesn't stop working. It keeps working. It's like a factory, right? However, you need to rest your thinking brain, in other words, the prefrontal cortex, some rest. Otherwise, your brain is now going to be receptive to new ideas. So number 3 is extremely important. Relax. Make brain more receptive to ideas. And this is exactly what you accomplish through meditation. Okay, that's where the spirituality comes in. And then once you let go and relax, some idea comes to your mind. Once you get your ideas, execute. You can have the most wonderful ideas, and if you don't do anything, it's good for nothing. So again, look at the way work is emphasized here, and look at the way work is emphasized in Karma Yoga by Lord Krishna. You have to do work, okay? But the caveat is that you should detach yourself from personal rewards and gains. Now, modern instruments have detected intense gamma activity, as this woman was saying, and also as Dr. Davidson, Professor Davidson's work shows, intense gamma activity during creative moments. For this to happen, step number 3 is a prerequisite, okay? So I don't know what, let's say you're working on a project, you need some creative ideas. They don't come, you cannot predict exactly when they come, but a lot of times when you actually relax, you need to work hard and then you need to let go and relax. Only after step number 3 does the brain get really creative, okay? Now, the whole practice of meditation and yoga, any sort of spiritual practice, is to kind of be ready for that for that. In other words, train your brain to be in that state of relaxed, in that relaxed state. Okay, that's what we mean when we say we practice yoga. So the last bullet point, how do you create a mental state that's conducive to the increased gamma activity? By routinely, habitually training your mind, training your brain to be relaxed. That's where the spiritual component is. Okay, without action, nothing can happen. You can read all the Bhagavad Gita in the world, but nothing's going to change. But unless you practice, you're not going to get the benefit of the wisdom contained in these verses. So to close this, I'm going to ask Rupa to chant a few verses from chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 6 is aptly called the yoga of meditation, or dhyana yoga. So can we do 6, 10, and 11 and 12?
Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi stitaha ekakiyata chittatma nirashir aparigraha shuchau deshe pratisthapya sthiramasanamaatmanaha natyuchritam nati neecham chailajina kushottaram tatraikagram manah kritva yadachittendriya kriyaha upavishyasane yunjyat yogatmanam vishuddhaye.
Great. So 6:10 saying, by the way, this translation is my own. Some of the words that I see, I think, are incorrect translations. So I have changed some of them so that it makes sense. It's all about common sense. Let the yogi constantly try to keep his or her mind steady. Sit alone. You need to be alone to be able to relax. Put away that cell phone. Don't check your WhatsApp or TikTok messages. With the mind and body control, for the next 10 minutes or for the next 15 minutes, tell yourself, I'm going to be just focusing on myself. Without self-centered wishes, self-centered is my own addition. The word that they use, and you probably heard Rupanti say the word nirasha. Nirasha, some people say, translated without hope. That's incorrect. In my opinion, it should be like kind of laundry list of wishes. Without doing that, or greed, aparigraha, right? Aparigraha. We saw this word in the Ashtanga Yoga, one of the 5 niyamas. Okay, so that's what you should do. Just be alone. You need to spend some time alone, kind of self-reflect and look inward and know yourself. Try not to be under the influence of, I don't know, some laundry list of wishes and what am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to do this? What happened yesterday? Just live in the present moment. Then sitting firmly in a clean spot. Cleanliness is emphasized throughout Hindu literature. It doesn't matter what scripture you look at. Sitting firmly in a clean spot, neither too high nor too low. You don't want to be in a high, raised chair, so your legs are dangling. No, you don't want to be too low either. So your legs are kind of raised. Sit in a flat place sit firmly. Now, the next 2-3 words, they may not make sense to us now in the 21st century, but they probably were written 5,000 years ago. So maybe that made sense back then. Made of cloth, a skin, or kusha. Maybe that's the seating arrangement, comfortable seating. Kusha grass, kind of a grass. Maybe they were very comfortable, one, laid one over the other. So what I would suggest is don't worry too much about the seat itself. Find a comfortable place and sit firmly. Be resolute. Hey, for the next 10-15 minutes, I'm going to be alone. I'm going to look inward. I'm going to know myself. Okay. 612, there, having made the mind one-pointed, you need to be focused with the actions of the mind and senses control. Don't be tempted by your desire to check the next TikTok video or whatever that you look at. Let the yogi practice yoga for the purification of himself. Get rid of all the evil thoughts or bad thoughts or harmful thoughts. Okay, sit there. And then what? Can we read 6:13? Let's skip 14 and then 15, please.
So 13?
13 and 15.
15, okay.
Yeah. 14, I thought you can do without.
Yeah, sure. Samam kaya shiro grivam dharayan achalam sthiraha samprekshya nasikagram swam dishaschan avalokayan yunjannevam sadatmanam yogi niyatamanasah Shantim nirvana paramam matsamstam adhigacchati.
Great. So let him firmly hold his body, head, and neck straight and still. So this is the only place, I think, in my knowledge, that the Bhagavad Gita talks about the physicality of the posture.
Yes.
You sit there, isn't that right? I mean,
Yes.
Okay.
Samam kaya shiro grivam. The spine.
Yeah, see, the body, the head, and the neck straight, right? And still, do not move. Gazing at the tip of your nose without looking around. Do not be distracted, okay? Maybe your neighbor is playing something, some show or something. Don't worry about it, because right now you're focusing on yourself. Thus, always keeping the mind balanced, the yogi with his mind control. Sorry about the masculine pronouns, because back then it was all masculine pronouns, okay? They never said his or her, his or his, her, or that kind of thing, he or she. That only changed only recently, by the way. His mind control attains to the peace abiding in me. The capital M-E, me. Lord Krishna is not talking about himself, Lord Krishna. It's about the eternal essence that resides in you, the self with a capital S. So when you focus on that, then you're free from anxiety and fear. The word they use is nirvana, not moksha, right? Okay.
Yes.
Nirvana. Nirvana is moksha, same thing. Okay. So it could be a momentary nirvana. That's fine. Momentary liberation is fine. But you continually practice this. And then look at the two verses that I've given you here. How many people have heard moderation is a key to healthful life? A lot of people may have, right? Listen to this, 6:16 and 6:17.
Natyashnatastu yogosti nachaikantam anashnataha nachati swapnashilasya जाग्रतो नैव चार्जुना युक्ताहारविहारस्य युक्तचेष्टस्य कर्मसु युक्तस्वप्नावबोधस्य योगो भवति दुःखः.
Okay, so Lord Krishna says, yoga is not possible for someone who eats too much, who does not eat at all, who sleeps too much or sleeps too little. Moderation is the key. You need to do what's right, okay? Eat when you're hungry. Do not eat when, after your stomach is full. Stop eating when you're not hungry anymore. Same thing with sleep. Do not deprive yourself of sleep. That's why even modern teachers say in schools, choose sleep over more work. I say that all the time to my students. If you don't sleep, you cannot function. Okay? And yoga destroys pain or angst or worry or whatever for someone who is moderate in eating and recreation. So he reasserts that moderate in eating and recreation, in exertions, exercises too, don't overdo them, moderate, and sleep. So it's just you see a lot of repetition in Bhagavad Gita. That's because it is an oral tradition. People don't retain unless things are repeated. So, Veda Vyasa wrote this. A key aspect of ancient literature is that you see a lot of repetition, mostly because in those times they were not written down. They were just orally transmitted from one person to another. Okay, so I think that's all that I have prepared. I have a very important question for you all. Name something that you will change from this moment on, for sure. Some practice that you will follow. It can be very little, very, very small. In fact, I would even ask you to tell me something small that you will definitely do every day, possible, or routinely in regular intervals or regular times. Name something that you will change up for yourself after listening to all this stuff. Okay, so I can stop sharing the screen now. So now I'm eager to know what you're saying. Name something that you'll do differently from this point on, or something that you'll bring into practice. Come on, you gotta give me something.
Well, it'll change the well, this class will like probably change the way I react to situations.
Okay, great. Now I'm going to start putting people on spot. Mira.
I think I would like to start like processing the events that happen in my life so that they can turn into like positive stress instead of like distress.
Awesome. Awesome. Pratik? How do you say that name?
It's Pratik.
Oh, okay. Oh, is that? Oh, it's not a child. It's not. No, sorry.
No, I'm not a child.
Okay, Adira.
I'm gonna try meditation for 15 to 20 minutes every single day.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Varsha.
I also want to try meditation, maybe like before I go to bed, so that way I'll be able to calm my mind before I go to sleep and start the next day like anew.
Speak up a little bit.
I'll try and do meditation before I go to bed, so that way I can sleep sound and wake up the next day fresh.
Okay, nice. Okay, so I hope you listen to these recordings again, because when you hear it one time, it's not going to stick. And this concludes our sessions, I guess, workshop. And I hope to work with you again in some other capacity.
Prasad,
Okay?
I have to say something.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prasadeta, especially your accolade all this 7 episode which you had showed all the people. I'm sorry to say as a president, because the people attendance were so low. I'll make sure that after 1 month or 2 months we are going to start in a weekly once, or Sunday or Saturday, which I'm discussing with Rupa. Definitely more participants will be there, and this shall go for next level. And thank you, Rupa. You coordinate with the Prasadatan very well. And I think this recording might be seeing the people, all the people. So we have to get more exposure. And because this is one thing nobody is doing in this US, as per I know that.
Right.
In such a way, Prasadatan has made everything. Really, it's eye-opener for me also. Openly, I'm telling you. So that's why each and every week when I come Tuesday and Saturday, because I learn a lot of things. The way I used to do every day 15, 20 minutes meditation. More than that, our young children has to learn more on this benefit and take the benefits. If they use in their daily life, definitely our people with the super power people in this country and in this way. They can success and come all the way. What you say, that's ahangaram illade, samadhanatham ella cheda. What your plan, aim, which Prasadatan told, you have to aim on something and just conclude, definitely going to achieve it. But it will be very, some people get fast, some people will be slow, but it's going to get it on that. So thank you, Prasadata and Rupa, and all the students, children who came. I'm very thankful to you.
Big round of applause to Rupa, please.
Yeah.
Without her help, this wouldn't have happened.
I myself learned a lot, I have to say, Prasadata, because I mean, you asked everyone. So my takeaway from these sessions is that we have to start living in the present without worrying too much about what's going to happen, because yoga is about living in the present.
Absolutely.
And the way you demystified Gita for us, that's amazing. Because
amazing, yes, definitely.
എല്ലാ ശ്ലോകങ്ങളും മനഃപ്പാഠം ചെയ്തിട്ട് ഒരു കാര്യമില്ല.
അതിന്റെ meaning അറിഞ്ഞാൽ utilize ചെയ്യണം.
Exactly. So that was amazing. And as Sanjeev said, we would have, enjoyed.
Yeah, we are blessed for that. Prasadne പോലെ ആൾക്കാർ നമ്മുടെ ടീമിലുള്ളത്, എനിക്ക് ഭയങ്കര proud. I don't know what to say.
Absolutely.
And this I'm going to highlight in the Onam and every place. I'm going to definitely, because more people have to then only the interaction, not the interaction, we can give more education, educate the people, no?
Absolutely. It's a very empowering tool that we have at our disposal, and it's our own. It's
definitely.
Exactly.
Everything we have, but nobody is using on that. That's the main thing. Everything we have. Thank you, Prasad and Rupa.
Have a good night.
Thank you, children. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Prasad uncle.
Bye bye.